let's do some solutions to the problem set. I'm going to start from a working program, as you can see. So I'm drawing an ellipse centered at the mouse x and the mouse y coordinates. And its width and height, they're fixed at 60, 60, and I'm not wiping the background. So I'm keeping all the previous ellipses I've painted. Okay, so let's look at problem 1. In problem 1, we're supposed to draw a circle to the left of the mouse location and another circle to the right of the mouse location. Let's do that first, and then we'll change the colors. So if I want to draw an ellipse to the left of the mouse location, let's subtract 30. If I want to draw an ellipse to the right of the mouse location, let's add 30. Why did I choose 30? It was arbitrary, and in fact, 30 might not be the right thing to choose, so let's run it and see. Okay, so it seems like those are too close together. So let's change it to 50 and 50. Try it again. Okay, that looks reasonable. So now let's change the colors. In this example, we've got sort of a purple color and sort of a green color. So I know I can change the color with the fill command. So I'm going to fill with a new color, and purple, let's see, purple is like blue and red. So let's make, so remember we're going to have 3 numbers, how much red, how much green, and how much blue. So let's make no green, but then let's make like quite a lot of red and quite a lot of blue and see what that looks like. Okay, that seems like a reasonable purple color. And then the other one is, and so that fill color applies to everything that I draw afterwards. So now let's copy that and let's make a different fill color that will apply to this ellipse. So the purple color applies to the ellipse that I draw after, and then the color I'm about to make is going to apply to the one after that. So I think we wanted a greenish color, right? So let's make like a little bit of red, let's make a lot of green, and let's make like a little bit of blue. I don't know what this is going to look like, but we'll find out. All right, great. So we've got purple and green. Exercise 1 is complete. Okay, exercise 2 asks us to do some experiments. So let's replace this ellipse statement with this ellipse statement. So here I am. And let's run it and see what happens. And then the goal is to explain why is that happening. So it looks like when I move my mouse up, it gets really short. And when I move my mouse down, it gets really tall. And when I move my mouse left, it gets really narrow. And when I move my mouse right, it gets really wide. And if I move my mouse along the diagonal, it's like a circle that I can make bigger or smaller. So why is that happening? Well, here's the answer. The reason the ellipse isn't moving around is because the first 2 numbers are the xy coordinates for the center of the ellipse. And so those aren't changing. Those are always 400, 400. But remember, these 2 numbers are changing because they give the coordinates of the current mouse location. But what happens when I use that number as the 3rd number in my ellipse command? If this was the number 30, that means make an ellipse whose width is 30. If it was 60, it means make an ellipse whose width is 60. So the fact that I write mouse x here means look at the x coordinate of my mouse, but then use that number to give the width of my ellipse. Because even though it's called mouse x, I'm using it as the 3rd input to the ellipse command, and so I'm using it to determine what the width of my ellipse should be. And then this is the height of my ellipse. So what that means is that as my mouse x coordinate changes, it should change the width of the ellipse. And let's watch it one more time now that you have that idea in your head. So here, as I move my mouse left, the x coordinate gets smaller and the width of my ellipse gets smaller. And now as I move right, the x coordinate of my mouse gets bigger and the width of my ellipse gets bigger. Same thing for the y coordinates. As I move up, the y coordinate gets smaller, because if you remember, 0 is up here. And so the height gets smaller. And then as I move down, the y coordinate gets larger, and so the height gets larger. So that kind of thinking is going to be important, where you think, what does the number in this location actually mean for what you're trying to do? Let's look at the other ones. So let's make a prediction. What do we think is going to happen with a line like this? I just have to look at each number here. So the x-coordinate, where the ellipse is centered, is never going to change. But then the y-coordinate is going to move up and down with the mouse's y-coordinate. So in other words, I'm going to take my mouse's y-coordinate, and that's exactly where I'm going to draw the center of the ellipse. So for this width and height, I'm using the mouse x-coordinate. So that means that if my x-coordinate is small, the width and the height are both going to be small. And if my x-coordinate is big, like my mouse is on the right side of the screen, then the width and the height are both going to be big. The fact that width and height are the same here means that it's always going to be a circle, because a circle is a shape that has the same width and height. So let's run it. As you can see, as I move up and down, the circle's moving up and down. If I move left, the circle gets small. If I move right, the circle gets big. That's a lot of fun. Okay. The last problem asks you to draw lines from the four corners of the screen to where the mouse is. And remember that the line command, you give it an XY coordinate for where your line starts and an XY coordinate for where your line ends. So all we need to do is put 4 line commands where we start each line at a different corner of the screen. So the upper left-hand corner of the screen is at 0, 0. And then I want to draw a line from the upper left-hand corner to where the mouse is, mouse X, mouse Y. Let's run that and see if it makes sense. Okay, so that makes sense. Let's go ahead and paint the background here so that way we don't see the trail being left behind. Okay, so now I've got 1 line. So now all I have to do is add the other 3. So now let's draw a line from the lower left. Where is the lower left? It's got an x-coordinate of 0 and a y-coordinate of 800. If you don't know that, that's okay, but this is why you really need a reference, because you don't want to get stuck on something like that. You want to be able to look it up. So you need to have something sitting right next to you where you can look up information like that. So I'm going to draw a line from the lower left-hand corner, and again, I want to draw it to wherever the mouse ends up. So now I should have 2 lines. And you can see them here. I'll leave it to you to complete the last 2 lines from the upper right and the lower right. And then the very last part is to draw an ellipse just exactly where the mouse is. And this is a relatively small ellipse. So there we go. Okay, good luck on the last 2.